Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Damaged Darts. Today we're going to be working on converting this Nerf Triad into a Star Wars Biker Scout blaster. Let's do this. Alright everybody, here is the test fire of the Nerf Triad stock. Not bad, it still has quite a bit of pop, but we're going to show you guys how it shoots afterwards when we've done the internal modifications on this as well as the cosmetic. Alright everybody, we're going to dig into this Nerf Triad and work on the internal modifications for it. Now, if you're going to just do the modifications rather than the cosmetics that we're going to be doing today, really all you need to do is take out these four little screws and we're going to work on the inside, which is the compression chamber with the plunger and the power spring. So let's dig into that. Alright, so here's what the inside looks like, and pretty much this whole handle is the plunger, the power piston itself, and this is the O-ring. Now I happen to have another Nerf Triad that I was working on, and I'll show you what I did with that. All I did was slide off this O-ring and then put about 1 or 2 wraps of Teflon tape, T-tape, right here. And all the things that we use in these modifications, we'll put a link in the description below so you guys can get some of those and do your own modifications. But yeah, about 1 to 2, maybe 2.5 wraps will do of that, and then you roll the O-ring back on, which gives it a nice tight, airtight seal. No air getting past that O-ring inside that piston. And then we're going to want to take off this screw right here. Slide that off. And take out the stock spring. And you're going to want to replace the stock spring with an 8 kilogram retaliator spring. Slide that one on, and as you can see, it's a little bit thicker gauge, and it is a good 1 inch or so longer, so you're going to get a lot more compression, a lot more pop, a lot more power using this spring. And then simply slip this on. This one's going to be a little tricky. You're going to have to, luckily there's a little plus symbol on that plunger that this fits into. Make sure everything's aligned. Just kind of spin it around until you get it aligned. And hold it while holding it down. That screw back in there. Put it over here so you guys can see. And nice and snug. Be sure to be careful, you know, a nice torque on it. You don't want to over torque and strip the screw, but a good, there we go. Really push firmly down on that O-ring component so you know it's seated well on that orange beam. Continue tightening until it stops. And after you've tightened that in, go ahead and put that back. And of course, well heck, why don't we just go ahead, for example, take this O-ring off. Let's add some T-tape to this. And then we've got a little bit of T-tape to really space things out there, and then roll on that O-ring. You should have a pretty good, oh yeah, nice seal. You gotta push and then push on that trigger here to release that catch. That's your catch mechanism right in here. Oh yeah. Nice airtight seal. We've got everything lined up, and then of course we got that extra, so you're really going to have to compress this down what I recommend is screwing one down, then the one diagonal across from it, then the other one, and then finish that final one. So let's go ahead and do that. Sometimes it's a two-man job too, but oh, one other thing, make sure you've got this little handle in the right position. Sometimes chances are you could get it flipped this way. It'll still work, but it might be a little awkward in pulling it. So make sure you've got it in this direction when you place it into that plunger before you seat everything down with the screws. So let's go ahead and screw everything down. Alright everybody, so that is pretty much it for the internal modifications on the Nerf Triad. T-taping that O-ring and upgrading that power spring to an 8 kilogram retaliator is really all you need to do, and you've got a super powerful little blaster. However, you can pop off this little area right here. You can take a little mini screwdriver, pry that back off. There's one screw in here that you undo, and then you can go from this part right here and pop this whole mechanism out. To take a look at what's there, you'll see these little tines that are spring-loaded. What those serve as, they serve as sealers for each of these chambers for the darts. Now you want to leave those the way they are because this fires in succession, fire 1, fire 2, fire 3, so all the air is concentrated on one dart at a time. So you really need that mechanism there. I wouldn't do anything to it. You don't really need to. It's not going to do anything to the firepower. Everything that happens right in here is what you really want to upgrade, and you should be in good shape. Alright everybody, I actually did go ahead, since I had a backup piece, I went ahead and took the risk of drilling out, taking an 1/8 inch drill bit and drilling out 2 little holes, just one there and one there, just to see if it made a difference. And you know what? It actually did. As I showed you guys before, there was a little delay as doing the compression here and then firing, it would slow down. Well, drilling those 2 holes really alleviates that vacuum, and it really slammed down nice and fast. That really gave it even more pop. So yeah, I would suggest doing that in your modification. So again, T-taping the O-ring, upgrading the power spring to an 8 kilogram retaliator, and drilling, taking an 1/8 inch drill bit, drill a couple relief holes in the bottom of that, and that thing really rips. But of course, here in Damaged Darts, we don't just do that. We want to do the cosmetic modifications as well, and we're going to be, of course, transforming this into a Star Wars Biker Scout blaster. So let's get started doing that. Alright everybody, before I begin sanding down everything on this Nerf Triad, there's a little story behind things. I got this one at a second-hand store, and I came against the most annoying obstacle that you may find on modifying or popping things up, disassembling, I should say, the Nerf Triad, and it was getting this gosh darn front piece off of here. Now you may have seen other videos where they, for some reason, had just this nice easy screw to take out here. If anything, take a look. It's a different model of Nerf Triad. The color will be different. I saw one video like that and it's like, oh, how simple. But I took a look down in there, it's like, there's no screw head on this thing. Well, what this actually is a rivet in here. So the only way to get it off is down here. There is a little clip. You can take a little mini flathead screwdriver, push down one side and kind of work it out until this comes loose, or some needle nose pliers to squeeze it together and push it through. Then you've got to take a 3/16 inch drill bit, which fits just perfectly in here, and you've got to press down and drill and drill and drill and drill and drill and drill. Patience for sure on this one. You're like, gosh, it's not doing anything. It will. press and drill and drill and drill, and it will wear off the head of that rivet, and then it will finally come off. You can see in there, there's that kind of you can see the raw steel down there that's of the worn away rivet. I'm going to get in there with a drill bit or a Dremel piece or something, just kind of clean that up before this slides on, because there's really no reason for it. This guides it, it slides on even, it clips together in here, and you're good to go. So that is a huge thing here. It is doable. You've just got to have a little patience, a drill, and a 3/16 inch drill bit, and it will be a done deal. So I'm going to do the same thing, because what I ended up doing is prying off this pin here, and I ended up cracking the plastic and all that junk. Well, you don't need to do that. You drill it off, that'll come out. You will need to take some care with this little metal pin here. Alright, so here is the end result on another difficult piece. As I said, just wanted to recap on that. I did take a nail and a hammer, and I just want to get it on a surface, kind of an upper, like say, okay, the corner of a table. So this part isn't setting there, but try and get this area as flat against the surface as possible, so there's not a lot of give underneath. That way you're less likely to crack the plastic, and you're just going to kind of have to press down. It gives a little bit, it flexes a little bit. Well, you take that nail and you push down until you're up against that little flex, and you take a hammer and tap, tap. Just some sharp, successive taps. Be patient. You just kind of give it a little pop each time, because what that does is there's some knurling on this little pin here that anchors itself into that plastic. And so you're just kind of scooching it along inside of that plastic hole there with each tap, and you will start to see it come out one side, and just gradually, you don't want to just put all your weight, just some nice pops with that hammer, and just gradually work it out at the end, and then it will come out, and then boop, you got that there. All right, everybody, as you can see, I've got everything sanded down here and ready to go, and I have a few 3D printed pieces here to add to it. I've got the scope, the top clamp, the back of the gun, and the handguard here, and that fits nice and even behind that portion of the blaster, and then it will screw right into the base there when everything's assembled. So I'm going to go ahead and give everything a coat of automotive-grade primer, and then the gloss black, and take it from there. There's the automotive primer now on everything. Of course, I didn't prime these black parts because they're already black, and then so I'm just going to leave those as is, and then let this stuff cure overnight, and then tomorrow I'm going to put on the gloss black, and then do some more finishing after that. Now I've got everything painted with the black spray paint. So I did the automotive primer, a nice couple coats of the black spray paint. Next, I'm going to do the weathering chipped effect using a silver Sharpie marker. So I'm going to work on that. Alright, so now I've got all of the weathering chipped effect that I like completed using the silver Sharpie marker. Now I'm going to start assembling everything back together. But one thing you want to make certain of is I'm going to re-greasing all the parts. So I'm going to take the lithium grease here and grease the cylinder here. I'll probably add a little bit of lithium grease to this piece here, as it's got to go into the base here and slide around. So I want to grease that up. I think that should cover it there. There's plenty of lithium grease on this O-ring that again we've T-taped, and that's ready to go. And the 8 kilogram retaliator spring is going to go in with that. Oh, and then the base, the other base I tested it out with 2 holes. That worked great, so I went ahead and just popped 2 more in there just to get all that air rushing through on that suction to really get that plunger to snap fast and add that much bit more firepower to it. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, a couple extra modifications I need to touch on this is the scope. I'm going to line this up where I want it, and then take my drill bit and drill down into there. I'm going to take care to just go in a little, as I'm trying to keep this whole back end assembled. I'm going to be very cautious to not go all the way through and puncture something I don't want, because this is what we're looking at. For example, here it is. It's going to be going in there, so I don't really want to puncture right there too much. I mean, it can shave into it a little bit, but I don't want to go all the way through. It may not make that much of a difference, but I just want to I want to try not to, just to get a few threads to bite into there to mount this scope as it should be right here on the side of the blaster. So another thing I'm going to be working on as well is I got some machine screws I found at the hardware store. This is the smallest I could find that would fit, you know, fairly close to looks like the same diameter as a Nerf screw, but it needed to be longer. This is a fine thread, it's metric, it's an M3 0.5 by 16 screw. Hillman, I got that at Lowe's Hardware. You can go to any different hardware store and find screws. I just needed to find some long ones that would go through the base here, and then that goes on top of it, so it's got to go through this handguard, through that base, and into the blaster. So I thought these particular ones would do, because it goes into that countersink and has a nice bite to it, so hopefully that works out just in that front end, and then I can use my standard screws, of course, in the back end. So without further ado, let's get started putting that part together. Alright, with this next part of the assembly is where we kind of get into the more tricky stuff. I'm going to need to assemble the trigger mechanism back in and all these parts that were really tightly locked in. So I've got to get this slide up in there. There we go. And then of course the pin hole is going to need to line up. Because then we're going to put that metal pin back in. This looks like the newer one. Some pliers here, maybe add a little bit of squeeze pressure to it, might be enough. Doesn't seem to do the trick. Starting to. Alright, to make sure I get a good purchase on that, I'm going to go over to my workbench, and how I tapped this out, I'm going to put it back in. It pushed in like to where it would do, but I'm going to take just a standard nail and a little hammer. Make sure again that I just line this edge up on the edge of a table. Just give it a few taps so I see the silver come through the other side. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to take this out for now, the plunger system. I'm going to go do that, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I went ahead and tapped that in. I think I got a good purchase. I mean, it didn't come out all the way the other side, but it did get a good bite in there. So it's really nice and solid. So that's really all you need there. Looks like I got a little rub right here around the trigger. Maybe even a little bit in that area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of lithium grease and just kind of dab some in there, right there, and maybe just get a Q-tip with some on it and just kind of rub it in around those edges where that trigger's going to rub. So let's do that next. Alright, so I've got this all greased up here, the trigger mechanism. The pins back in. In the process, I had the nail stray on me and got a little gash right here, but that works to my advantage, and I can just dab in a little bit of that silver for some extra chipping, weathering there, and around the pinhole itself. That should be good. Now we can get that front barrel piece put together. Well, it turns out, had I to do this again, I might have to go back in and tap this pin back out, put this barrel on first, then put in the trigger mechanism so it slides into place correctly. Alright, so I did have to go back in and pop that pin out one more time. I'm going to put this on first, then the trigger, but of course some paint scraped off while I was doing that, so I'm just going to take my silver Sharpie marker, color over that orange that's exposed. When you're painting on your modification too, you can even take an inventory of where parts are going to be, and if they're not really exposed and seen, go ahead and tape those off, and don't worry about painting them because they do sometimes tend to gum things up. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, just to be sure, I'm going to color these areas with the Sharpie, at least this edge here, and then we'll put the front on first. Yeah, there, I heard that click. That was good. And then that front just has a nice press fit now that we've taken that rivet out. You don't really need it there. The front's pressed in, good. So now let's hope we don't have too much of a time getting this little piece here to slide in between those little clamps there. Okay, and while we're at it, let's add some more lithium grease. So that's what I would have done in hindsight now that it's here. A little lithium grease there, a little bit there, wherever that trigger is going to be. And while this is open too, let's take that Q-tip, put some more lithium grease on there, and just go in between here. Grease things up really good. This takes out any of that mechanical friction, just reduces it. And while we're in this kind of lithium greasing everything, I'm going to add a little dab of it to this pin I've got to put in there. You know, that'll help things slip along. Just a little bit. Right there. Okay, so now we can continue getting things back together. Slide this up. Work that, wedge that little piece up in between those two clamps there. And then line up our pin. Use this screwdriver just to get a little oomph. Make sure we're getting a good purchase there. And then lining everything up here attaching post. And I got a little bit of paint scrapes here, but I'm not too concerned about that, as again, we just take our silver Sharpie marker and color it all in. I'm going to see if I can, yep, there we go. Press fit that in. And then I'll go back over one more time. That seems to have the effect we want. I go back in one more time and tap that pin back in. Alright guys, I've got everything pretty much set on this part, this far on the assembly. I'm going to drill some holes in order to screw on this scope on the right side of the gun. So I'm just going to kind of line things up as I would like it to be. I've got a 3/32 inch drill bit here, which is just under the diameter. It's the main shaft of the machine screw I'm going to use, just slightly under the diameter of the thread, so it gets a good bite in there. I'm going to I want to make sure I have everything nice and straight here and aligned, and cautiously drill into this. In fact, let me drill into this first, because it seems the holes are a little bit small. I'm gonna carefully drill myself. There we go. Needed a little bit taken off there, so I'm gonna do that with the other side. There we go. Alright, now I'm gonna line everything up. And I'm just gonna make a mark on it first. See if that worked. Okay. So I can kind of line it up off of that one. Okay. So that looks about right. Line this mount up. Yeah, that looks pretty spot on there for everything. So now I'm going to go ahead and just make a little bit of a drill in here. I don't want to go all the way in, just enough for the threads to bite into the plastic here. There we go. I believe that's just inside the casing here. Just before, oh, for example, where's that other, my extra piece laying around? Ah, right here. Just before going into something like that. So just before touching off that, I want to kind of leave that untouched so it gets a good air seal right there for those darts. So let me go ahead and drill out this hole. There we go. You can feel it. Ah, I can see it just right. That's perfect. Okay. So now, get that other piece of plastic out of here. So let's drill it kind of bore it out. There we go. So let's see if that's enough here for what we need for screwing things together. So I'm going to go ahead and take my mount again. Make sure that it's lined up correctly. It seems to be. Press that back down on here. Line everything up. Oh, I should do my drills on this top clamp as well. Line everything up. I'm gonna find the right Allen wrench for the job here. Looks like this one will do it. Bingo. So what I'll do is first get it started on this before I continue on and getting it the rest of the way into the blaster. Since this isn't threaded, I just gotta kind of use it as its own tap. Alright, after, well, let me just say the struggle was real. But I got it to work. I had to really bear down and really push and just patiently twist and tap out the threads in this plastic. But if you're patient and you just keep, you know, jockeying it around, and definitely don't over tighten one side versus the other, gradually go from one side to the other and even things out, and I got it. It has a nice bite to it into the plastic, and you can kind of flex. Be careful so you don't crack the, if you're, you know, going to do a project like this of your own, that you don't break the plastic, but it's a little bit flexible. You can kind of just give it a little bit of a tug here and make sure everything's straight. Above view, side view, that looks pretty darn good. So now the next part I'm going to be doing is taking this back part that I had drilled out and then screwing in. I've got a little slot here that lines up, screwing this piece, and then this is going to click. I'm going to click onto the back here, so I'm going to do that next. Just using some standard Nerf screws. In fact, I've got some worker mod standard Nerf screws here. Again, I'm going to leave everything I use here, link in the description below, for all the tools I use in this project. Alright, so that's all set. I'm going to just snap this back into place. Now I'm finally going to fix this piece in here. Okay, that's enough to hold it in place for now, because I've got to line up this here and then screw everything down with those two more of those machine screws. Okay, so the pole's a bit scabbed up here after I had to, again, it was quite a process to thread everything, but it fit pretty darn good. A little gap in there, but not bad. I may go back and model another one and just eke it up a little bit, but hey, that's pretty darn good there for the handguard. And it fits in nicely. Those machine screws, after a little bit of jockeying and just patiently getting it threaded through, fit great, really tight fit there. I kind of had to, you know, push the handguard a little bit and flex it to line everything up, because I'm basically retapping the threads here from the coarse threads that were there. And of course, in doing so, with a little bit of that lithium grease, it tends to have a little bit of gum up right here on the paint. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is just going back and doing a 100% fill density 3D print of one of these in solid black PLA plastic, like I did this handguard and scope. And then I don't have to worry about it. Just keep it solid black, put it in there, voila, we're good. But yeah, everything back together, the catch ring does its job. And of course, too, the coup de grace to top it all off is this little pen nozzle. Like I showed you guys, you just pop the top off of a pen, and with a little bit of sanding job, it presses nicely into that hole right there for that little nozzle tip for the Biker Scout blaster. Alright everybody, so here is finally the big reveal. Here's the finished product. What I ended up doing was actually, I had some of that peeling going on this handle here when I painted it orange. So I just went ahead and remodeled it on 123D Design and printed it out on my 3D printer, so I had a nice solid black pole right here. I also took the, well, for example, the plunger head that's inside here. I took a bigger, more hardy screw with a coarser threading to have even, and a little longer too, to have even more bite and a lot more hold on this plunger onto the handle in here too, due to that 8 kilogram and a little bit longer power spring upgrade. So I did that. I also went and popped the pin out again, removed the trigger mechanism and the barrel, and right in here, that little piece that goes in between those little clip areas from here, well, I took those out and I sanded off the paint. It was a little gummed up and it was kind of interfering with the whole catch ring movement. So I sanded that down and just went back over it with my silver Sharpie marker instead, so I didn't have any paint gumming that up. And that seemed to remedy it. Oh, I also put a little bit of lithium grease, also actually a little dab of super lube, just in the edge here and along the side right there. And so then when I depress the trigger, that catch ring really goes down firm against the plunger here and stops it. So yeah, so going over it one more time, a recap, I 3D printed the scope, this back piece, the additional handguard piece, and the pull for this conversion of a Biker Scout blaster. Alright everybody, we're here at the firing range to test out this Nerf Triad conversion into a Star Wars Biker Scout blaster. So here goes. Oh yeah, huge difference after doing those internal modifications, so. Woo! Yeah, this baby really pops. Now we're going to use the new modulus chrono barrel to measure the velocity FPS and the dart counter. Of course, there's going to be 3, but I'm going to have Chandler come out here next and help me out with that. All right, here is the new modulus chrono barrel, and I'm going to be the holder today since Chandler's able to aim up these blasters a little better than I can. A higher success rate. It's a little more difficult because it does have the hookup for the end strike ends for blasters. So if you're using one that doesn't have one, it's best to have a friend hold it for you while you make the aim and shoot it through the barrel to get that measurement. So hopefully we get more successful fires than fails, but here goes. I'm going to be the holder. Chandler's going to hop up here and shoot through this thing to see what we get.
Alright, 71 FPS.
71.
76.2.
76.
And then 77.2.
Woo! 77.2. Alright everybody, hope you enjoyed watching that video of converting a standard Nerf Triad into this Star Wars Biker Scout blaster. If you haven't subscribed to our channel already, please consider doing so by clicking on the icon here. Also click on the notification bell below so you don't miss out on any of our new videos. Damaged Darts, signing off.